Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. This is the NAACP for the state of Maryland. How goes the hour? I am Willie Flowers. Happy to be back on the scene again for this Friday at 1 o'clock. I look forward to this day, this time, and this hour to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world, in the country, and in this state. It makes me very proud to put the NAACP in the forefront of all this and to let you know that we are on the call, on the watch, and ready to do the work that we were sent here to do. In the nation, I know everybody has heard about the passing of Queen Elizabeth. Um, uh, Rest in peace. Um, but it's complicated. It's very complicated. I won't spend much time on it because the sister has moved on, transitioned, made her statement to the world. She had time to do everything in the world as a very wealthy lady, and everybody, Black Twitter has gone in on this lady, and every single way. It ain't just Black folks; it's everybody has an opinion about her transition and what it meant. According to everything, she was in power for 70 years, I think, and was a very old lady. But I'm going to close it up because it's simple to me. I don't, it's not my role to kick dirt on the dead, not my role to pee on her grave or to spit on her grave. But I will say this: she had 70 years to make things different for the royal family, for Great Britain. 70 years to pivot to something new and different. Some people say she did, but as a Black African person who is, I'm inspired by liberation of Black folks. And a lot of the colonies that the British government, the British Empire oversaw were Black countries. Not only were they Black African countries with a wealth of resources until this day, Great Britain went into a lot of these countries and took everything. They took the gold, they took the land, they took the people. And all I have to say about the Queen is that she had time to correct all that. And I don't see where she spent a lot of time talking about racial justice. I don't see where she spent a lot of time talking about love for everybody. And I certainly don't see any evidence of them giving back the gold, the land, and the resources from any of these African countries. So I don't have anything bad to say about the sister. I hope she rests in peace. But I will say that in all that we do, especially very powerful people, if they can take one day to redirect this thing that has been messed up, a lot has been messed up as it pertains to Great Britain and her when she got into power. I'm just saying that she didn't spend any time saying, I'm sorry. Here's your gold. Here's your land. Here are your people. And so I guess that's the message to King Charles. He has an opportunity to do the same thing. Same thing with his son. I think his name is William or whatever their names are. If they can do the right thing for the people and, basically redistribute what they have stolen over the years. And so all I can say is rest in peace. She had an opportunity to do it. She didn't. Now, nationally, we got a lot of stuff going on in our country. We talked about the reality of what was going on in Jackson, Mississippi last week. Hurricanes coming and all this. And quite frankly, I try to pivot to something positive because when you turn on any site, negative news galore. So I'm trying to fight to figure out solutions and to make things better for people so that we can have some light instead of this darkness. So we're going to spend a little time on that today. So the national news is the national news. You can pick your poison on what is a good or bad. But I had an opportunity to go to Philadelphia this past weekend, and I met for the first time. I have been following Michael Africa. If anybody knows about the MOVE movement in Philadelphia in the late 70s until 1985 when the bombing happened. And the beauty of the MOVE movement was that they created a community for Black folks for their liberation. And the reason I bring that up is His story continues. Michael Africa was one of the babies. If anybody knows about Move and the community they built, when you joined Move, you may have had a name like Flowers, but when you became a member, you changed your name to Africa. Everybody in the community was Africa. Well, Michael Africa was not a person who converted or changed his name. He was born in it. And him and about 30 other young people, it was a lot of young people, but 30 that were born before him were the first generation of the Move movement who have the name Africa. He's doing some tremendous work. He did a documentary where I was first introduced to him. He did a documentary about his parents when they were in prison, pretty much his entire life until he advocated and lobbied to get them out. He did get them out. And he's been doing work ever since. He has a beautiful story. I hope to have him on this show. Hope to have him in Baltimore at some point. But the reason I bring it up is that the Move movement created a movement for the liberation of Black African people with no shame about what people thought about them. But because they built that movement in Philadelphia, and let me highlight here that in Philadelphia, when you go there, they talk about all of the people who came to Philadelphia from Germany, from other parts of Europe. They came to be free and liberated. And that's all of the mile markers, the historic signs speak that language about the Irish, about Jews, about Quakers. Everybody came there to be free and to be independent. And these Black folks come along and do the same thing. And they literally got bombed to death, 11 people killed. And I bring all that up to remind you that it's still about our liberation. You know, white folks might not like it. They might not get it, but we have to fight for our liberation. And as much as we can, we have to inspire other people to come along. And I'm going to be talking to a couple of people on this site who are doing that work in their given spaces. And that's very important. Now I'm going to close with, we're going to talk a little about what's going on in Baltimore right now, but I'm going to show you how devastating this, I'll point out the Baltimore Sun specifically, when we talk about, you know, significant news. Now we have a situation where in Baltimore, and I'm only talking about negative things because that's, you know, to lead to my point. Last week, a young man was killed at Mergenthaler High School. That same week, the air conditioners didn't work. Let's get into the conversation about the water issue on the west side. Today, at this moment, the first page of the Baltimore Sun, their biggest news is that Lamar Jackson didn't get his contract extension. When we got people on the streets in Baltimore City confused about whether they should drink water or not. They can get sick from E. coli, and you know, it can die from it. They can be disabled from it. But the top story today at this moment is Lamar Jackson's contract was not extended. So I'm just bringing that up to remind y'all that we got to do this. It ain't on the Baltimore Sun. It's not on the city of Baltimore. It's not the state of Maryland. We got to lift our own people up. And I'm happy to have a couple of people doing work in our community. And we're going to talk about these very negative issues because they have to be talked about. And I'm introducing you to people who are doing work in that space so that you can know that the cavalry is coming. You're not alone. If you're expecting the government to do it or any entity that you don't influence and doesn't have your best interest in mind to do it, you can try that, but you'll see what you get. I put my faith and my trust in the people who are doing the work, who are sweating, who are concerned about our community and in the community. And I want to introduce a few of those people right now. It's going to be a pair of people. I'm going to let them, they have never met. Maybe they have, I don't know, but they're both in Baltimore. I want to invite to the stage Larry Simmons. He's doing work in the education space. And Mama Tamika Gray, she's doing work in the mindfulness space. And I love both these people. So if I get out of hand with my affection and admiration, all that, I'm using those positive motivational words for a reason. It's only because I've seen both these folks doing work that other people don't do. They have the patience that other people don't have, and it gives them the ability to be problem solvers in a city where we need folks doing that kind of work, hands-on work, sweating, not crying, but they might take a step back, but it's a step back to move 10 steps forward. They're mobilizing people. Their voices are articulate in the space, and the people who need the help understand what they're saying. And that's very important right now, because that is what we need. So I want to introduce both of them. Welcome to the stage. We can start anywhere, but I will say that I pulled Larry in, and we can start at the top because I pulled Larry in last week when I got the news about the unfortunate news about the air conditioners in the schools. He's doing work in the schools as the chair of PCAB, which is called the Parent Advisor. Is it PCAB, the Parent Community Advisory Board? Is that correct?
Yep, you got it.
He's doing work in that space, and he's in a significant space to, advocate for solutions so that we don't end up back where we are. You know what I'm saying? Because PCAB was one of the organizations years ago that first identified that there was lead in water, and they shut the water down in the public schools. And now we're dealing with E. coli in water in the neighborhood. So I want Brother Larry you have the floor.
It's kind of funny. I was just having, right before this, before you and I were talking, had this conversation about the mundane violence that our students live in, or that our young people live in constantly. And this whole water issue just kind of adds to it, right? So all of the school violence, all of the neighborhood violence, and now I can't really drink water, so I can't be healthy. And this is just like this state-sanctioned violence that continues to happen to young people in Baltimore City and cities like Baltimore, but particular Baltimore City. I think this is just a perfect conversation. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Mama Tamika.
Thank you so much for having me. So I offer healing technologies such as yoga, meditation, anything to do with mindfulness. And sure, when we come to a session, the problems don't go away, right? But the session gives us tools and ways to manage and move forward. So I'm so excited. I'm so grateful to you, Mr. Flowers, to the Park Heights Community Health Alliance for even welcoming me in so that I could offer services to the communities. Thank you.
Okay, we just got a zoom in from Councilmember Dr. John Bullock. I'm gonna let him in. I know his time is tight because he's kind of on the road. So I'm gonna add him to the stream so that he can chime in as well. Dr. Bullock.
Hey, good afternoon, folks. I wish I could be on camera, but as you mentioned, I'm in transit. But I've caught some of the conversation. I appreciate everything you're saying as it relates to water and access. And as you know, we've been deeply affected by that here in Baltimore. So glad to join you today.
Okay, we're getting down to it. So we got two issues. How much time do you have, Dr. Bullock?
Probably about a good 10 minutes or so.
Okay, so we'll start with you because we wanted you to give us an idea of what's going on the ground, because a large part of this impacted area with the E. coli is in your district, correct?
Yes, that is correct. And so I can tell you there was a lot of concern since the word got out on Monday morning. Obviously folks have been scared because clearly we're talking about, a potential public health hazard and something, that could be deadly. And so we've had issues with our water infrastructure in the past. And in this one, obviously folks were very concerned of being told to boil water. We were doing water deliveries and drop offs and having people come and pick up water. But as you know, water is a human right. And so you need that for life. And, seeing that some of our most vulnerable residents, some of our young people, some of our seniors wanted to make sure that they were okay. I am pleased that the boil water advisor was lifted earlier this morning. So I feel a little bit better about that. But the issue still remains in terms of security of our water sources and also making sure that our system is up to date.
Now, that's kind of what you have. I guess that's your job. Your job is on the line right now. Can we agree with that?
I think you make a good point. I mean, people look at, they'll say, hey, the city government and their closest representative is the council member. Now, yes, the mayor, is in control of the Department of Public Works and other city agencies. But at the same time, when people are looking for information and looking for, action, obviously they look to our office as well. So, that's a part of our responsibility.
So it starts with you, but there's a larger issue of advocacy that comes from your standpoint, I guess, to the mayor, but then from the mayor to the governor, and then this discussion about what infrastructure funding means for Baltimore now, especially because the money is there. It just has to be allocated to do what should have been done a long time ago. Is that what?
Exactly. And so I will say this point. We've had conversations, and we'll be holding hearings in the city hall to talk to the director of public works, to talk to the health department around what was being communicated, but also what the status of our system and where some of the gaps are. I am hopeful that with a new gubernatorial administration, that will be helpful. I was speaking to our Democratic nominee yesterday around some of these issues. He was also on site helping to provide, water. And one of the things that we were, clear, about was that over time, we've seen that we have not gotten the type of resources, the type of partnership from the state of Maryland that we should have gotten over all of these years. We have one of the oldest infrastructures, not only in the state, but also in the country. So some of our pipes are even wooden pipes, if you can imagine that. So we've had a number of water main breaks, things like that. So having that, the local support, but also from the state and from the federal government, to your point, we know that there are infrastructure dollars from the Biden administration. We want to see those expended here in Baltimore City.
Now, wait a minute. You said wasn't Pinocchio made out of wood?
Yes, indeed.
Are you telling me that you got wooden pipes? So that puts us back when Lexington Market was open, right?
Exactly. And so if you think about the older parts of our city, we have some pipes that obviously that were made of wood. We had some older pipes that had lead based, right? So we had to remove some of those pipes. And again, I could tell you, for instance, in City Hall, we don't drink the water in City Hall, right? So we have older pipes as well, right? And some in our school system as well. So these are things that even to some of the panelists I've been hearing you talking about, because these are long-standing issues that we've been dealing with, and they have cropped up in emergency situations, but there's still challenges that we have to deal with in a comprehensive fashion.
Right. Well, bro, all I can tell you is, you have the ability. One thing I can tell y'all about Dr. Bullock is that he has the contacts ability, the brain power to figure this out. Even though he's on the council, he doesn't control the budget. He's influencing the budget. But I do believe that if anybody should be in this spot right now to come up with solutions, he's a person who can do that. So I wish you luck with that, man. I do want to say that I was in your hometown this past week. And speaking of old stuff, I was very impressed that there are cobblestones in Philadelphia that I guess been there since they started that place.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
But we don't want the pipes that were from the cobblestone. The people,
understood.
The
Some things from
shouldn't be doing the pipes.
Yeah, we need to have that kind of updated infrastructure. And I'm glad you also mentioned the budget. For quite some time, even in Baltimore City, we haven't had the ability as a council to move money around in the budget. There will be changes that are coming. So in the next couple of budget cycles, we will have more ability to be able to move money around and try to prioritize things of this nature. So I appreciate you covering this, and I appreciate your partnership and making sure that our communities are not only healthy, but also knowledgeable about health.
All right, man. Good luck out there. Let us know how we can help. I know there is an extreme concern, not just in Baltimore. I have to put Baltimore first. But Jackson, Mississippi, the NAACP national organizations on the ground there doing work to, help navigate. Baltimore is no different. It's a concern, and it will not leave. The local branches doing work in that space. So, we certainly want to be helpful. I know there is a need because I'm confused by what it means that one day you're saying to boil the water and the next day you're saying don't. I got trust issues. So I know that I ain't going to be drinking nothing that y'all got coming out the pipes.
I understand.
I'll go ahead and tell you that one. So
Understandably so.
But I do, I do think there's room for significant community outreach. Whatever canvassing, whatever, door to door to let people know. I don't know if that happened in detail, but it's something that particularly young people can jump on to do to get the information to the people who need it. So consider that.
Absolutely. Well, look, thank you so much. And I'm going to run now. But again, I appreciate you covering this.
All right. Thanks, man.
Peace, brother.
All right. We're coming back. We got, we're going to talk a little about, with Larry Simmons about where he is with, because it's just not air conditioning. I mean, I think the air conditioning problem went away this week because it rained at the beginning of the week. So it was cool.
But Councilman Bullock really hit, like he was hitting some points, right? Like it's not just, like you said, it's not just schools and air conditioning. It's also the city's infrastructure. It's also the libraries and buildings that young people are in beyond school, right? I was talking to some folks at Enoch Pratt, and if you look at some of the branches that are in our community versus the branches in like Govans or Roland Park, you can't do anything because you're sweating the whole time because the air conditioner's not working, right? Or it's just constant traffic, or it's this, bleeds right into the two cities, the tale of two cities of Baltimore. But moreover, it's this push and lean on that we have to do to the state to make sure that we're getting our fair share.
Right. And I mean, we're talking about ones that don't have air. We don't have a library at all in Park Heights. So that's always been a concern. And, talk about piecemealing. We did a reading room in our building so people could have access to books.
Right.
And I'm thinking we can do that until the library comes. And we still don't have a library. I think that was 8 years ago that we did that. So all that is heartbreaking to me. And I know that, doing the work you do, because brother, I pray for every activist that's trying to balance out their lives, their careers with work, service work.
All the stuff. Yeah.
But, and based on what the council member explained, it just creates this shroud of constant stress, cortisone at a high level. And what do we do? So what we have always tried to do, in my vocation with the Park Heights Community Health Alliance, we promote meatless eating. We promote using the community as a way to walk, to run, to be, do some cardio exercise. We also promote the different modalities that she explained earlier. And one is yoga. And we've come a long way since I've been working in the community for us not to view yoga as something that's white folks or women, thin white women, and all that, but it's something that you can find yourself in. And my experience was when I started running, trying to do a marathon, the first thing I read was that, you need to be flexible to do that. So they advised yoga. And my first yoga class, and it was probably the only reason I was in there, but the first yoga class, it talked about the power of the breath. And the instructor basically said that, your breath is where it all starts. If you ain't breathing, you ain't living. So I want Mama Gray to explain her work and how it fits into communities that are not traditionally used to, going to a class to talk about stress reduction, mindfulness practice, and what that means, and how you can organize people to get to a space to sit and breathe.
Yes. So it's just like you mentioned, the cortisol, that is an important factor. It brings a lot of tension into the body, especially for those of us, right, working in the Park Heights area or any area that's faced with challenges. I mean, it's life. Life is full of challenges, right? So even without the water issue, air conditioning issue, we wake up and we're in a state of either worry, right, or regret. We're either looking ahead, feeling down about that, or looking back, feeling down about that. And yoga provides a space where we can just come and to be present. And like I said, it doesn't get rid of the problems at all. The problems still exist, but if we're present and reduce those cortisol levels, it creates space, it creates room for creativity, right? And for us to be strong and to support each other. So coming into communities such as Park Heights, it's not easy. It's definitely a challenge, but I am so proud of those that actually take the step forward to say, hey, let me see what this is all about, you know? And me as a facilitator, as the practitioner also, I feel it's my duty to make them know that it is accessible. Like, look at me. I'm a yoga teacher. I've been teaching for over 5 years. So if I can do it, surely you can do it. So I just hold on to those types of values and try to, you know, instill that in those that do come. And what's so wonderful to see is that those that come to yoga or meditation, whatever it is that I'm offering, they're sharing with their friends, they're sharing with their families, and it becomes a domino effect. And pretty soon we see everybody talking about, oh, like you said, use the breath, be still and use the breath, slow it down and come back to who you originally are. Come back to your royalness, come back to your divinity. The divine that lives in you can manage anything. So come back to that. And so that's how we've been working. And those are the values that I focus on and instill in those community members that do come through. And we're growing every day. We make sure that we have signs out there, phone numbers to contact, to make sure that these tools are accessible.
Yes. Namaste. So,
Namaste.
So Larry, you got it at both ends. So you're trying to lead. You have to teach. You got staff. You got all that. So how does that fit into what you do? How have you managed your way through it? You know, because it's a lot to navigate.
I feel like I need to come and visit Mama Gray, but I do. I visit a Reiki practitioner every so often. I try to meditate in the mornings. I definitely walk about 5:30, 6 o'clock every morning, just kind of getting myself together for the day. But sometimes I really do have to work on slowing down and work on being on vacation. Like, I'll take a vacation, but am I really on vacation? If I'm, if I'm taking my laptop with me, if I'm constantly looking at, emails. So I always say I'm still working on learning how to be on vacation. So over these last couple of years, I've been taking solo trips, which has been very helpful in my relaxation, because nobody wants to go to the jungle, to go stay in like a little hut or something. That's what I've been doing. Done it a couple of times, and no one wants to go, and I'm good with that.
Shut it down.
Yeah, it's been a great time living off the land and completely disconnecting.
Oh, you good. I ain't living off the land. I got the land. That's great. But yeah, you good. But
no resorts, no hotels.
The state of Maryland is they call it America in miniature. I mean, there's something to choose, whether it's mountains, it's you got the beach, you got all this in Maryland that you can just chill out, and you can become anonymous. I mean, I love it going to places that people don't know me.
Yes.
And I don't consider myself a celebrity, but if I'm around Baltimore, somebody's going to want to talk and this kind of thing. So when I go to anywhere that nobody knows me, I'm like, I don't have to do anything, you know. So
the little small counties are really nice.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm a runner too, and once it's something interesting about when people see you running, they don't really know who you are, so it kind of keeps you anonymous, and I'm good with that. So I guess the other thing that I want to pitch to both of you, because I know that the Holistic Life Foundation has done a lot of work in the schools in the past. I don't know where they are in their programming now, but there's a need for young people who are having to endure all this chaos. And one thing I say about it is, it's chaos, it's trauma, it's kind of addictive, but nobody knows it. Like they don't know they're traumatized. They don't know that this chaos shouldn't be like this. And you do things that showcase a pattern of it. It's the pattern of addiction. I'm using the word addiction, but you do something consistently that kind of soothes you, and you do that thinking that the soothing part is what you should do. But as Mama Tamika explained, you're supposed to live in a space of peace and divinity, and it's hard to do. I mean, I practice on it every day. Trust me, it's hard to do, but it is what we should do. When you allow the ego to take control, you almost assume that you're supposed to be responding with a fight all the time. Well, not really, because the fight should not have started.
Yeah.
So how do you get people to see that they are, positively get them to see, because you're the solution, that they are in a state of trauma and that they are in chaos, and you don't have to be?
Well, I can start to speak to that for sure. Just practically, every class, every session starts with just checking in. Don't even control the breath. Don't do anything with it. Don't try to control the body. Just notice. I mean, how many of us stop throughout the day to just notice how we're feeling? We ignore our feelings so we can push through, right, and get things done and help people. And that's how we come to be burnt out, right? But that's how we start our session. Placing the hand on the heart. Connect with the heartbeat. We all have a heart that's beating. You can connect with that so that you can kind of see, okay, well, this is where I was when I first came in, right? And this is where I am now. I like where I feel. I like how I feel where I am now. So how can I leave and sort of carry this with me? And so that's how we sort of progress throughout the sessions. We're always talking about things like intelligence, emotional intelligence throughout the session, right? Because when we're faced with difficult times, a lot of times we take it out on other people. We push the anger, right? And this causes the arguments, this causes the fights, the breakups, and all of these things that we see when we really need to be coming together. So again, we start the session with, hey, how are you feeling? Check in with yourself. That also instills compassion, not only for yourself, but for others. And no, it's not easy. I teach this, I live it, I breathe it, and I still at times find myself falling off balance, falling out of, the place where I want to be. But it is something, right, that we should be absolutely doing. So I think when they come into the session, they check in where they are, they find how they can feel while moving through, and then it's like, oh, you know what, that behavior that I was exhibiting or those feelings I had before, that's not really good for me. So that's how we bring that awareness.
Now, Brother Larry, well, I forgot to announce, this brother has just been awarded the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. What is it?
They haven't made it. They haven't made it public yet. So
it's not public.
No.
I just outed you. So, but the point is,
after the meeting that I have right after this with them, then we can talk about it publicly.
Well, I bring that up is that you have a lot of connections to influence how, particularly young people, because when I hear that a child, and that's, I'm sorry, the teenager thing is cool, but a child went into a school. I don't know the details of what happened in this situation.
So a young man, a kid, right?
Right.
Went to a school and shot another kid during dismissal. And it's kind of crazy over the last couple of, maybe I'll say that we kind of, even in this later part of the summer where the 9-year-old boy killed the 15-year-old girl, right? Because he was mad at her brother. So in the space kind of what Mama Gray was talking about, and the way that we kind of work is really, one, helping folks to all all understanding we're all living in a space of trauma. Like that's something that we all kind of carry. And to really help young people is sometimes we have to, and what we've done with like within the school system is really to kind of connect with those folks in the community versus regular school staff, right? So these folks who really are connected to young people who live in the neighborhoods and who are trusted, brothers and sisters, right? And so schools in the district have partnered with those types of organizations and bringing those folks in to help. But I believe that we had an opportunity coming out of COVID to really get uncomfortable and to really think and to rethink how we value Black children in Baltimore City. And we didn't, right? We came back doing the same old thing, right? Buildings ain't ready, heat, cold. So like 2 weeks ago, they were hot. A month from now, they're going to be cold. So like we really have to take this time to really rethink how we value young people and how we partner with them in their own success. And the work that we've done with Nobody Asked Me, we've had direct conversations with young people where they're telling us what they want, what they feel like is going to work for them, and it's not happening. So the study really kind of talked to young people and their families between the ages of 14 and 25, and really kind of listened to what they thought about the systems and services that are in place that are supposed to serve them. But as somebody who's working with young people, I also can identify and acknowledge the hamster wheel of need that they're on and that we as service providers are constantly on as well, right? But like I said earlier, when folks begin to get uncomfortable and we move young people out of this constant space of need, right? When we begin to provide the right services, the things that they're asking for, the things that's going to keep them coming back and then they're gone, right? You don't want to create these. We've created such an enabling system that our kids are going to always be in need until somebody, all of us, become uncomfortable and be willing to give up our seats, right? Like you're not a social worker for forever, and that means you haven't done your job, right? If you keep seeing the same client over and over again, have you done your job? You haven't. But the system that we work in is so set up to keep all of us in that space. So the groundwork that my folks are doing and that we are involved in is amazing. But what has happened with Nobody Asked Me, we've been able to connect groundwork and policy work, right? Using data to support the work that community organizations are doing to push on state policies. So like Councilman Bullock said, I'm really excited about the opportunity that we hopefully have coming in with this Democratic candidacy.
Well, I'm gonna just say that we can't expect them to do it all. We gotta advocate. Yeah, we gotta advocate. Now, one thing that I've had to observe, and I didn't really have this experience growing up where I did in Alabama, because pretty much if you didn't stay in the same house for 12 years of school, you stayed in the same neighborhood. So I didn't have the experience with people moving in multiple locations in the city, because it was basically based on housing insecurity. And I bring this up to say that your work is impacted by that, and that's really nothing you can control as a teacher. And what I'm interested now, because I've been watching this thing in Park Heights, we've tried to do programs with young people, and you talk about a hamster wheel. 1 week they would be around, next week they would not. They wouldn't be here on the weekend. It was mind-boggling. So I guess what my concern is, how can we connect that policy? Where is the conversation about housing as a social determinant of health that a priority? And how can we also say, of course, that has to be quality housing as a priority, so that people can stay in place, so that families can grow. And if someone has an understanding that if somebody has a chance in an academic institution that's supposed to last for 12 years, it's good for them to be consistent in where they're going to live. And, whatever the step is, because Baltimore has this tricky thing about, choosing where you go to high school. But hopefully by that time you have a situation where a child is directed, if you're going to do the public school thing, directed, and they can select the school that's best for them. Is there any conversation happening about that? And that's specifically connecting a child's academic achievement to constant housing.
I think that's been like I don't know, that's been a consistent conversation. Folks are all in my circles are always kind of thinking about that. When I was a community school coordinator in schools every day, that's what kind of the deal is. We would have a kid a whole school year and then wouldn't see him the next school year, and then he might just come back the third school year, right? Because grandma or auntie still lives in the neighborhood, right? I think that housing security is aligned with so many of the issues. I mean, working with principals trying to understand students' chronic absenteeism. Housing insecurity is one major piece of that, right? We have young people who are moving from district to district to district, and then they come back to the original district, and trying to track that kid and those attendance barriers that have affected that young person sometimes becomes a little difficult when they're couch surfing or they're transient. And I hate to really use that word, but that's really kind of what it is. And I don't know, it's a constant conversation. I think that it would be nice for these conversations to kind of come out of the dark and kind of come together and really start putting some meat on the bones of that work.
Mama Gray, you got something to say?
No, I don't have much to add to that. Just giving them, well, I've mentioned before how the sessions work, but when we do that, we're also giving them tools that they can take with them wherever they go, right? So that's, I guess, sort of the bright side to it. That they may not be consistent in, where they are physically, but the goal is to hopefully mentally give them something that they can hold on to, and take with them wherever they go.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I find is, particularly because it goes back to the mother, and this is part of my practice. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I stick with the fact that if we don't honor, protect, and respect the Black woman, we're going to go down. And so we should build a community that protects the Black woman, knows how significant she is to our community, but we are protecting her. And that has to be a value, that has to be something that we practice, as something we have to reinforce to young people. And I do believe that when they see that, or feel that, they see their power, because they came from this beautiful Black woman. And that happens. But what's happening now is, particularly when we talk about teen pregnancy, when I hear a 15-year-old, 14-year-old who's pregnant, I don't think that 15-year-old, whatever age, teenager is involved with someone their age. It is usually someone older. And that breaks my heart, because here's an adult who's taking advantage of a child. And so that trauma starts there. The preconception thing is significant, but it's hard to talk about preconception when you have such a young child that they don't know what's happening to their body. They don't know they're pregnant. So the trauma is kicking in from the start. So that it's almost like the child doesn't have a chance. So I'm bringing that up to say that there's a housing issue there, because, regardless of, I'm kind of giving you an anecdote, but it's also the case that this young girl, is in a house full of a big family, and she has to stay in that place, in that space, until the child comes along, and then you got a child to take care of. in addition to what's there. And it starts this cycle that's a heartbreaking cycle of this housing insecurity that could continue until this child is an adult, and this cycle starts again. And that's why I think this housing thing is important. That's why I think that however we do it, um, uh, public housing could be sufficient. That's not the conversation. Stable shelter should be a priority. It should be affordable, and it should be in a situation where people have the ability to achieve what they want to be and what they want to accomplish, and so that children can flourish. And I think that when they flourish, better decisions are being made. I'll just use the word predators who prey on young girls are not don't become the problem because they have the protection. And hopefully we can change that, with some understanding of how great they are, because there's no reason for an adult man to be targeting a young girl for anything except to help her in defense if she has some challenges. So I share that, and I put that on the fire because that's kind of the system that we're in. There are different terms about, I guess, students. I guess they used to call them emotionally conflicted. There's different, we have developmental challenges and this kind of deal. But I don't believe that's the end of the game. I believe that if we have a stable community, sufficient housing and direction, that we can overcome all that. So I guess I'll put that on the table for discussion, and how we can navigate it. Because I guess I'm pitching to both of you, but particularly Larry, about how we can collaborate to talk about sufficient housing for young people. And if there are any examples, I know that Restoration Gardens, they opened a facility not far from here specifically for young people who had graduated from high school but were kind of on their way. There's like this gap between high school and 24, 25 that they captured to give them opportunity to get stable and basically to avoid being homeless. Some of these young people came from group homes or foster care, and they were being, there was a gap that Restoration Gardens, I forget the organization that established it. Does that exist anywhere else in the city?
I mean, I knew of some organizations that, well, one in particular that was kind of like a workforce development program where young people learn the trade and skill of carpentry, and they rehabbed houses. And at the end of the program, they got one of the houses that the team rehabbed. I don't know if that still exists. I know that like Project Fresh Start at Living Classrooms had some kind of rehabbing program, and I'm not quite sure that the housing piece was, or if one of those houses, but I know that there was a connection to other housing. But I don't know. Like, I think that there's some opportunities for someone to create that, and I think, it wouldn't be a bad thing. I often wondered. You kind of mentioned something I've always kind of been intrigued and kind of thought about is what happened to what happens to or for those young people when they move into independent living. And I guess that's what you kind of touched on when they're aging out of foster care and they move into the independent living space. I know that sometimes social services or whatever agency may help them get an apartment and may stick with them with a social worker for a year or so and kind of help them get established. But again, that's through different different social agencies.
Well, I'm all over that. It's certainly not unheard of to do community development, substantial community development, to establish that type of mission and message. But it's something, I can admit to overlooking it because I'm so busy trying to, connect the dots on our programming. But like I said, what we discovered is that if, you can have all the programs you want, but if a person is not going to stay around to benefit from the programming, it's almost like you're spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested in seeing where that can go. So I'll connect with you or anybody else to try to establish a conversation about it that leads to some substantial development. Because that's particularly in the Park Heights community, it's wide open for positive development that connects and has a mission. So I think we can visualize how that looks.
Sounds good. Let's do
So
it. Let's connect.
we can resolve that, but we can also get back to talking about the best way to transition to a mindfulness state and having mindfulness at the center of how we operate. So we don't have to talk about healing because you're working on it every day. So when you're working on something, you don't talk about it. You just work, right? So how does that look?
Well, just to add to this such a rich conversation, I didn't know we'd be going into housing and single moms and teenage mothers. But Baltimore as a whole is it's so rich with people such as yourself, as Mr. Simmons, Mr. Flowers, Mama Maria. We have so many wonderful elders and even youth coming up that are interested in this type of work. If there was just some way to connect everyone and pull these resources together, wow, what an impact we would have. I would, yes, love for mindfulness to be at the center, because mindfulness is not only for those that we find that we are thinking of, the teenage mom and her situation, but also for, the teachers, the leaders, those that are, hitting the ground every day. Like Larry was saying, I have to go away to my cabin and live off the land without you for a moment, to restore myself. That is definitely needed. So it's about offering these healing, technologies and modalities to everyone in the spectrum, from the one that we're trying to help to those that are actually, providing the services. So I would love to see that for every level, every aspect of us as a community.
Yeah, because I think that we kind of practice some. The minute we tell kids to time out, that's kind of opportunity for them to get it together, because I ain't have time out. I had I had something else,
It's not
and
time.
time out is a good thing. But the point is, whatever the practice is, if you get the beat down or the timeout exercise, at some point you are going to want to heal. And so it's really about that. And I tell people all the time, because I don't believe that health should be a negative word. And some people make healing a negative word, like, healing is a bad thing. Well, healing is the center word of health. And so if we are practicing these basic things, I happen to believe if you can think right, eat right, and you're physically active, you reduce a lot of this other stuff. So so I think that's what we should share. That's like something that beyond praying, and they teach us to pray for what we want, but beyond that, we're not sharing this type of stuff with young people, in my experience. So I had to learn to do that as an adult, So I want to trigger that before. I think we should trigger that before the children are adults, or are they hardened by their experiences, and that's a lot of what I see happening in the city. Um, because like I said, if the ego can take over and tell a young person to use a firearm, to literally kill someone, I don't think they really understand the power of that firearm and what that means. If you even pull it out, you know, there's a chance that you're going to be imprisoned. And I just have to believe that we can get them to understand what the ego means versus something, the ego versus divinity, as you explained earlier.
Absolutely. And you brought up a really good point about the other aspects of our beings, right? The food we eat, the water that we drink. It's interesting. I was teaching yoga to inner city youth that play basketball. And, you know, I would ask, you know, what did you eat today? Are you drinking water? And usually the response is, you know, I had some chips, I had some cake. No, I didn't really have any water, you know, and these are athletes. So imagine those that are not even using their body to physically compete in something, how they're being affected. And that all makes up who we are, right? We're not just an aspect of this or an aspect of that. It's the whole body as a complete being. And the food that we eat, the water we drink is also yet very important.
That's the starting point. Well, we're down to the 3 minute shot. I want to give both of you an opportunity to tell them what you're doing, how you're doing it, and how they can connect with you, and we can close this thing out. Who wants to go first?
All right, thank you. So I teach yoga, meditation, specifically every Saturday at 10 a.m. It's a beginner's class. Everyone is welcome. We have elders, we have youth there. So please come to that. I have a business called Victorious One, so you could look for that as well. And then we have meditation on Mondays. That's totally free to anybody in the community. Mondays at 6 p.m. And then we have another yoga session, which is yin yoga, and that's at Wednesdays at 6 p.m. I am here to serve, though. So if there's something that you think of that I'm not offering, please let me know, and I'll be happy to bring that. And again, my name is Tamika Gray. You could reach me at 443-894-1720. Thank you so much.
All right. Namaste all day.
And again, my name is Larry Simmons. I am the chair of the Parent and Community Advisory Board and also the director of community engagement for the Nobody Asked Me campaign. I serve on a couple of different boards in the city. And you can check me out at nobodyaskmebemore.org.
All right. All right. I want to thank both of y'all for taking the time to come in here. Again, there's a lot going on. I wanted to present these folks to let you know that there are soldiers and sister soldiers who are on the front lines doing the work. And if you connect with these people, whatever work you're doing can be made better just by being in their space. There is a book called Where Great Big Ideas Come From. I forget the name of the author, but he explained that not only do cities give you big ideas for innovation, for anything, just being around the energy of cities, it makes you want to do more. It makes your ideas come to fore. But also being around people who are doing good things also make you just want to make it happen. So I want to encourage everybody to stay in touch with folks who are doing good work, be the light, seek the light, and don't give up, because we need you. Thank you. This is it. How goes the hour? Thank y'all for coming on. We'll see you next time. Namaste. Namaste. All right. Take care.